Hi, everybody. How are you? I am sitting in a whole different room. I told you I'd be sitting in a whole different side of the country, but I did at least switch rooms. Oh, in a couple weeks, though, in a few weeks, you're going to see some action. Who all's here? Let's see whose names pop up. It's Wendy from Wendy. You are always the first on board. I don't know how you do it. It is amazing. Where is Guelph?
It is I, Wendy from Guelph.
It is I, Wendy from Guelph. Wendy from Guelph. Where the heck is Guelph? Because I've only ever seen that in the Divine Comedy. Hi, Stephen. Hi, River. Hi, Katie Lowe. Mwah. So good to see you all. We're waiting for some peoples. Hi, Donna. Hi, Julia. Yes, you did catch me live from Maryland. Maryland. It's Julia Jones from Maryland. Ooh. Oh, Donna has thrown down the gauntlet to beat Wendy from Guelph as first to the gathering room next week. Oh, there will be bloodshed. That was the whole purpose of this. See if we can get you shedding each other's blood. Hi, Anne from Massachusetts. Survived the winter, did you? I know it's the middle of August. I'm still thinking survive the winter. Aha! Guelph is a half hour from the Toronto airport in Ontario.
Great landmark.
Well, they must have some relationship to the Divine Comedy because there's Guelphs all over it. I've been reading the Divine Comedy like every day because it's the basis for my new little book that I've been writing.
Oh, they love you in Idaho.
Natalie from Idaho. Woo, 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 woo. Gainesville, Florida. Woo, woo, woo.
Oh, look at this. We got some reunions going on.
Oh, Liz and Trisha Elliott hanging out together. That's so awesome. You are literally gathering. Okay, we've got over 100 people. Let's just get started.
Go for it.
So my topic today, which is the topic that I have thought of. Have you seen that Monty Python skit? My theory, which I did propose, is that brontosauruses are small at one end, big in the middle, and small again at the other end. That will be the lecture for today. Stole it all. No, I was thinking, trying not to watch the news, but sometimes other family members have it on and I go past and I think, oh my Lord, the chaos we live in. There is so much chaos. And when I go on Facebook and I think I know what's going on, then I look at someone else's Facebook feed and they've got a whole other set of information coming on. Someone said to me the other day that I did not know what was going on at all because I hadn't been following some stories about the ocean. I was too busy following stories about the land and how devastating everything is there. So I just felt my head was a jumble. And I thought, there are so darn many of us on this planet. Every human being is so complex. We have chaos in our own minds. And now there are so many billions of us that we're just creating chaos everywhere we go. How do you cope in that kind of chaos? I know this is sort of a theme with me because that's my problem. Having ADD doesn't help. Then I was thinking about a time when I went with a couple of dear friends to this spa in Arizona where I was living, and they took us out and they did this obstacle course thing where you climb up a high pole. It's like 20 feet off the ground. That would be like 6 meters for those of you who are far away. And you climb up the pole and you stand on a little platform and you have a harness on. So in case you fall, you'll be caught. And then you walk out on this. Oh, and you have a rope to hang on to. And then you walk out onto a wire. And it's very, very unstable and wobbly. And two of you start from two different directions. You get to this place where the two wires join, like in a Y shape. And from then on, they just go in a straight line. And when you get to the point of the Y where the two of you meet, the rope you're holding onto is no longer enough. You have to drop the rope. And the idea is somehow the two of you have to get across the straight part of the Y together. All right. I thought, all right, it actually did look a little scary, but I'd just spoken to a big crowd of people and I thought I'd rather do anything than that. And I managed, so I'll go up there. And when I got up there, the wire was really, really unstable. And my friend who was coming from the other direction got a little panicky and hung on pretty tight. And there was a lot of instability. And the instinct is to try to get your footing on the wire, but the wire is wobbly and loose, and there's just everything you do to fight for balance just makes you wobble more. But I knew that I had this harness on, and I thought, well, if I just tell them to give more slack on the rope, my weight will be heavier on the wire, and my footing will be more solid. So I shouted to the people down there, could you put more slack in the line? And they did, and I sort of settled down into that wire, and suddenly it became very stable. And then they said to me, no one's ever asked for more slack in the line. And I thought, that's really interesting. And I realized that the reason I sort of knew to ask for that is that I'd had a parallel experience several times actually, but at times in my life when everything seemed really, really, really scary and everything was moving and chaotic in my life, which has happened a few times, I realized, like in the dark of night when I couldn't sleep, that there was a line suspended from above me that was connecting me to everything. And that if I relaxed and just counted on that line, knew that it would catch me if I fell, and settled into my situation. So there's this weird thing of, I have confidence that something is holding me up, and because of that, I'm comfortable being dropped into this unstable world. So I was thinking about that the other day, not watching the news, almost feeling the harness around my chest and shoulders and the rope coming up from my back and wanting to be lifted out of the situation, but instead saying, you know what, just drop me deeper into this. Like, let me really ground into this, because this is the experience I'm meant to have. One of my friends whose partner was dying said that things got about as bad as they could for her at one point, and she kept praying for things to get better as the love of her life decompensated from cancer in front of her. And she said one day she went out for a walk and some strange instinct told her, I've been asking and asking and asking for you to make this better. You know what? If this is the plan, go ahead and make it worse. Make it worse. And it got worse. And what happened as it got worse was that she grounded into that experience, and she realized that the process of death, which was happening, could be seen as a mercy once she stopped resisting the inevitable. So there's this weird thing, and it's expressed in some of the Indian traditions in this paradoxical statement. I think I've said this before in the gathering room, but it's worth saying again. That is, there is no world, there is only the divine. The divine is the world. So it's this strange thing. You look at a chaotic world and you can remind yourself, this isn't the ultimate reality. This all passes so quickly. My own life is so brief. Everything is changing all the time. Nothing's ever stable. It's just an illusion of stability. So I can trust what is stable, that is the metaphysical, the non-physical, that is my consciousness, which is the part of me, we've talked about this before too, the steady part that looks out through your eyes as the atoms that make up your eyes and the cells that make up your eyes change over and over and over again. The same consciousness looks through him. So you can rely on, okay, this isn't all there is. There's a rope that's connected to me, and it's solid, and it's going to pull me up when the time is right. I do not have to rely on this unstable place. But the reason I'm here is to play in the unstable place. So I'm going to know that this isn't the divine, and then I'm going to know that the divine is now showing up in my life as this chaos. So I'm going to settle into it. I'm going to let it be as bad as it is. It's a very paradoxical thing, but it's like getting yourself out of a Chinese finger trap. We've talked about that before too. And I want to do an exercise right now that will help you if you're feeling like things are chaotic and unstable and you want more stability. So the first thing you do is feel the sensation of wanting things to be stable, predictable, comforting, not chaotic. So feel the feeling of that. Locate it as a physical sensation in the body. So for me, it's a panicky feeling that sort of shows up here. My heart beats fast, my breathing comes faster, so it's moving toward panic. So the first thing you do is let that grow. You're settling deeper into it. And you give it permission to be. You say, all right, panic, have at it. And it's like saying, put more slack on the line. Now watch and narrate what happens next. So part of you says, okay, give me less stability, give me more anxiety, like really let this pump up to its highest level. At that point, the way you start narrating is instead of saying me, you start saying he or she or they, whichever pronoun you prefer for yourself. So I use she. So I watch and I say, okay, I'm going to let the anxiety have me. I'm going to let the chaos have me. And then I'm going to start making notes. Oh, look, she's very anxious now. Oh, look, and I can't do it without my eyes going down. Oh, look. Oh, she's actually sitting pretty still in the middle of a room where nothing bad is happening. Oh, look. Look, she's starting to settle. She's changing. She's becoming the part that enjoys the chaos because it knows that it's everlasting. I can start to narrate this. So you brought in a compassionate witness. Those of you who've been through the life coach training know that becoming the compassionate witness is one of the big goals of our training. And the interesting thing is that as you learn the skill, you start to apply it to your fellow coach trainees, but then you realize you can apply it to yourself. And that using that third person narrative creates the little you who's connected to the chaos and frightened and dying, and the great, vast, silent you who is always compassionately watching and is interested. I think I've said everything I'm saying now like 50 times to you guys. I don't know. I just need to repeat this, I guess. But there's a really fascinating case history in brain science where a woman lost the part of her brain that enabled her to feel fear. And yet she remained still pretty cognizant of what was going on, which is a hard thing to do because the fear center is way deep down in the brain. She had a horrible phobia of snakes before this happened. After it happened, so she had the same brain except no fear. She was fascinated by everything that had scared her before. That the way you could tell what frightened her before was that she was so curious about it once her fear was gone. And she actually became obsessed with snakes and learned a whole bunch about them and had pet snakes and would go to pet stores to see other snakes. She loved snakes. The very thing that she'd been most repelled by brought her the most curiosity once she moved out of the frightened meat self and into the sort of soul self. So as you do this thing where you give yourself permission to be afraid of chaos, you give yourself permission to scatter, what happens is that the compassionate witness brings the scattered pieces together. And where there was a creature who could not survive the fear of this environment, there's a creature who is fascinated by it. It is the consciousness playing in the field of matter. There's nothing more interesting to it. And all you have to do is this little switch into a third person narrative, and it all changes. And then those of you who've coached another person know how once you're separated from them, you feel this overwhelming love trying to reach them, trying to calm them. You feel the line fastened to their back, pulling them up, that's never going to let the catastrophe really happen. The fear can happen, the instability can happen, but that line is 100% rock steady and it's not going anywhere. So I don't know if you guys are in chaos or if you have some questions about the topic, but I would be most happy to entertain some.
Go ahead and ask your questions. While you do, we've just got a little congratulations to Emily, who has just been certified as a Martha Beck life coach today. Well done, Emily.
Yay, Emily! Compassionate witness to Lord knows how many people from here on out.
Well
So
done.
happy to have you in the tribe. We're all in the same tribe. There's no entrance exam for the tribe, but sure is fun once you get the training.
She's a card-carrying
She's
member
a
now.
card-carrying member. Okay.
Questions.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that one from Natalie. Yeah. So Natalie says, I'm living at a long-term campsite with my partner and 4 kiddos. Wow. We are full of hope, but I've had some seriously ominous and sleepless nights where I feel like everything is closing in. I'm breaking free and ready to soar, but I can feel I still have fear to face. Here's the interesting thing, you guys. When I read stories of people who I truly think have awakened, significantly awakened, that is, that they are very conscious of themselves as spiritual beings having a human experience, and they're really calm, don't have many problems in their lives because that comes from the congestion of the mind. They will still say that as they went through, there are like these layers of awakening. And at each stage of being more awake, the ego self that feels like it lives in chaos, it has to die because it's actually an illusion. The chaos passes, the stillness remains forever. So that which passes is not as real as that which remains forever. So the ego, as you cultivate your own awakening, you will scare yourself to death. Literally, your ego at some point will give up its view of what it really is, of what you really are. And then it just drops away, kind of like a scab. I mean, afterwards, it's like, why was I so worried? But the reason we get so worried is that as we move forward, the part of us that's moving forward is also dissolving. So that's actually a good sign. And what I think most spiritual masters would tell you is stay present with it. Ask for more slack on the line. Those nights you wake up and you're thinking it's all closing in on me, say, bring it, close it in, come on. And then start narrating. Oh, look, she's giving up, but nothing's happening. Oh, now something's happening. Now she's getting scared. Now she's getting panicky. Oh, now she's calming down. Now something's really different. Just use that in the night when you wake up scared because you're on the right path. And that narrative style will get you through it faster. Karen says, is it the compassionate witness who encourages play? What do you mean by play in a stage of chaos? Good question. The compassionate witness, yes, is full of fun, is full of love, is full of delight. Usually when we're scared and the compassionate witness shows up, it's very peaceful and very loving and comforting. But there are places and times that it goes hog wild with joy. Now, chaos, it's an interesting thing. One of my favorite books is a book called Chaos, and it's by a mathematician, and it's about the mathematics of chaos. And it just means that in a completely chaotic natural system, patterns of order develop that look purposeful. So you get right into the math of chaos, and it starts to produce things. You may have seen these on your computer. If you haven't seen them, go look up Mandelbrot equations. These are equations that just create a chaotic system, and they create these beautiful natural forms when they're presented graphically. So chaos is actually the intelligence of the universe playing with form and beauty. And it creates beauty of object, it creates beauty of experience, it creates beauty of all sensation, it creates beauty of thought. And so it's not, we tend to think of it as just like, everything's going wrong. But there's no such thing as a destructive chaos. Chaos itself is fertile and creative and beautiful. Go look up, get an app called Frax, F-A-R-X, and it just shows fractal forms coming out of chaos. All of which is to say that that's why you lean into chaos instead of pulling back from it, is that it's not as threatening as it feels to the ego. It's actually the continuous creation of new forms of beauty in what's called pattern disorder. And it's gorgeous. And it's how your life is meant to play out. Okay, Stephen says, once we narrate in the feeling, how do we end the exercise, or what do we do with it then? Very good question, Stephen. You watch it for as long as you have to sit. And then throughout the day, you will sometimes find the compassionate witness popping up and saying, oh, now it's washing the dishes and quite enjoying the sensation of soap on the hands or whatever. And it's almost as if you've developed those skills in the Karate Kid where he does wax on, wax off, and then it turns out to be karate moves. That movement into the compassionate witness will start to happen automatically. What do you do when you're done? You just get up and move on with your day, but then you do it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day, because holding the position of the compassionate witness is the balance on the wire, and you just practice it. And the more you practice it deliberately in intense sessions of like practice, the more it starts to show up in your everyday life. And you realize that every time something crazy or scary happens, you just go, okay, more slack on the line, start to narrate the thing in your mind because it happens automatically. And suddenly you're out of fear and into the compassionate witness. And this actually will move the electrical energy in your brain moves from the front of the brain to the back of the brain to a place where we fall. It's also connected to the part of the brain that activates when we fall in love or when we have mystical experiences. And it holds us up. It catches us. It holds us up. So Dragon says, how do you override intense emotion? For example, when it's harder to distance yourself or separate. Attention, attention, attention. I mean, I remember reading this in an old Chinese book and thinking, what? When you're in intense emotion, you keep noticing the intensity of the emotion. What I did about bringing it into the body is very, very helpful. So again, this is a coaching tool that my coaches use all the time. When you're lost in emotion, when you're confused by what's going on around you informationally, the body. So if I have a huge panic attack and it just makes me want to run around screaming, instead I hold my seat. Maybe sometimes I don't. Maybe sometimes I run around screaming. But eventually I get tired. And then I lie down and I'm still in a panic and I go, where is this in my body? It's my whole body. What does it feel like? Oh, I can feel like thrumming in my arms and legs. I can feel my heart beating too hard. My breathing. You start to describe the feeling in the body and allow it to be bigger. More slack on the line. More slack on the line. Come on, bring it. More fear, more panic. Heartbeat rise faster. Paradoxically, by giving it permission and encouraging it to get worse, it sometimes does spike or grow, but then it almost immediately drops off. So locating it in the body and describing it in the body is the way to come out of that complete overwhelm. Same with anger. You're really angry at somebody and you're ready to punch them in the face, and you start saying, wow, I am burning up. I feel like so much adrenaline in my arms, I'm clenching my jaw. And suddenly you're watching the anger and you're not in it. Yeah. Okay, Judy says, the other day I got knocked down by a news story about an animal cruelty story. All it took was one line I couldn't avoid fast enough. This has happened to me before and I crash. I can't bear it. I don't know what to do to get it out of my head. Any ideas? Yeah. Ask for more slack on the line. I don't even want to talk about the news story I saw about an animal that is sad. Enough said. I don't want you to hear the details. There is a news story about an animal that is sad, and it is killing me, okay? So I heard it, I couldn't unhear it. And so what I do then is I remember that every animal who's ever lived before this time died. Many of them died in painful ways. Many of them may have been sad, malnourished, and all of that. Okay, the immensity of that suffering, like it gets bigger, more slack on the line. It's like, oh, and then it drops me down into, but that's what this game is, and they all got to leave. They're all, because the line says this isn't all. The line says, the line that connects us to spirit is saying they're all connected too, and everyone gets pulled up at the end. No one ever falls forever. And these animals, in the same way, will suffer whatever their experience is meant to be. They will suffer it, and then they will stop suffering. And the one thing that we can be sure of is the end of suffering. That is the gift of death. It's the gift of mortality. So you go all the way through the pain and you end up in a spiritual place. That's why I'm doing these broadcasts, because I've never been able to resolve any of my pain without ending up in a spiritual place. But that place always holds me. The line always holds. So Monica says, can I use this when I discover a belief that I want to change and rewire? Absolutely. She's talking like a coach too.
She's just got another follow-up.
Oh, goody.
Just to clarify.
Oh, look at this belief as a third person, not mine. I'm confused.
So,
I think she's talking about looking at herself.
Yeah, so she has a belief that she wants to change and rewire. What if she looks at the belief as a third person?
Oh, yeah. What happens if you've got a belief that you want to change? And these are literally wired into the brain. A belief actually connects to physical neurons, or many physical neurons, and wraps them in this sheath thing. And that's a very easy thought now for you to think. And that's what a belief is. It's something that you've thought a lot of times, and it has a highly myelinated neural circuit in your brain. So if you have a belief like I'm not good enough, that can be very powerful and very destructive. So that's what we do. Most of our coaching stuff is coming into those destructive thought patterns and changing them. And watching as a third person is almost inevitable. If you think I'm not good enough, you watch, okay, I'm thinking the thought I'm not good enough. How is that affecting me? Think of it in the third person. She's thinking the thought, I'm not good enough. How is that affecting her? Well, I'm looking at her. Her posture's crumpled. She's sick to her stomach. She's gone to bed. She has 6 bags of Cheetos and 83 cats. You know, things are not going well. And from that perspective, you see that the thought is not useful. And then the question is, well, are there other thoughts that I'm thinking? I, the compassionate witness, if another person was saying, she's not good enough, what would I say to that person? And you start to create a compassionate witness that has an alternative set of thoughts, which are far more gratifying because they're true. Not because they're complimentary, but because they're true. In the end, the line that holds us up is always the truth. And we get to it through this observation of the self.
Time for one more?
One more. Okay, Kristin, can you use this with physical pain? Absolutely, and I've done it for many, many years. I just had some tummy troubles, and I used it on my tummy troubles. I was walking along, and I felt like a giant was kicking me in the stomach. And I was bracing and resisting. And as I walked, it was making it very uncomfortable. And then I remembered, oh, I just started to be in opposition to my whole experience of going for a walk because of my stomach pain. And then I remembered how to do this. And I was like, okay, more slack on the rope. Instead of tensing the part of my body that hurt, I deliberately relaxed it. I deliberately relaxed my abdomen. I started breathing more loosely, and the pain went up. And I started to describe it. The pain is in my stomach. It feels like a giant kicking me in the stomach. There is tension around it. Oh, there's anxiety around it too. So I've got some anxiety. I've got some tension. I've got some pain. Oh, now the pain is changing to a burning. Oh, now I've noticed that my arms are relaxed. Okay, now my stomach hurts, but my arms are completely relaxed. I started to narrate it from a third person thing. She's getting better as she watches the pain without freaking out. So what happened was that by the end of my walk, the pain in my stomach was completely gone. It had expanded to fill everything because of my resistance. And when I asked for more slack on the line, it expanded more and then slowly disappeared. And that's the experience that I've had with this type of meditation over and over and over, sometimes with very intense emotions and physical sensations. It's brain surgery without scalpels. So I hope it works for you. And Lisa has only 18 cats and 8 bags of Cheetos. Well, you're young. You'll move on. So yes, the line that holds us up is always the truth. And when we just ask for more of the experience we're having and then watch it, we end in a place of compassion that is the rope. It always holds. So I'll see you on your tight wires next week, and I'll be tiptoeing along on mine. So let's all have a lot of slack on the rope. I'll see you next week. Mwah!